point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities. Never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are, who you're going to be. So prove to them, still amount to something. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith Andrew, and this is Season 12. That is right, Season 12 of the hit wonder Keith Andrew Network. It's episode number 3. So that being said, we're here with a great guest, so let's jump right into it. First question I want to talk to you about, first subject actually I want to talk to you about is icebreakers. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and a little about your background.
Sure. So my name is Suzie Ziser. I am an actor, producer, a continuity script writer, or a script kind of manager. And I do a lot of voiceover, and I am a financier by day. So I'm a thespian by night. I'm from New York. I live in New York currently, but I did live in California for 11 years, where I studied theater. Theater is my true passion, being on the stage. I studied improv for almost a decade and wrote some of my own skits that performed on the theater stage for a few weekends in a row. I was in a few Christmas shows, and my most proud performance, I was in a improvised episodic soap opera for 6 months playing the mayor's wife, and that was really fun. And then the pandemic hit, of course, so theaters were closed, and that gave me an opportunity to move back home and take it more seriously. Where I started kind of production and continuity was here in New York. I'm also a scare actor, so I do a lot of fun stuff during the Halloween season with a few different haunted houses and things. I'm usually a lead actor at the Kreischer Mansion in Staten Island. I've been a witch, a vampire. I've done a lot of really fun stuff, and I look forward to everything that's next.
No, absolutely. I do have some great ideas I would love to work with you on. I know we were talking about that earlier, but the next one I want to ask you is when you were in college, were you a study nerd or party animal? And what did you major in?
So I went to college a few times. This is a loaded question. I went to college 3 different times. And before I got my associates, and that's kind of where I stopped. I had a lot. There are people that are very much school people, and there are people that are just not school people. And I just wasn't a school person. So I went right into kind of career work. And I got lucky because I got into my field before they were requiring degrees. They actually require degrees now for my fields, but I got in right before they did. So I'm in almost a 15-year financial veteran now without a bachelor's degree, and I'm probably the only one of the only ones in my company who can say that, which is, I don't know if that's cool or if I sabotaged someone, but I definitely liked to socialize much more than I like to study. But I went initially to school for geology because I really loved the study of like rocks and minerals and things like that. Then I switched to psychology. Then I went back to school for international business. And then I finally finished with hospitality, travel, and tourism. I did go back to school a few years back, and I took a few semesters of sociology because I find it very interesting. But besides research, there's nothing I would really do with a sociology degree, so I didn't continue it.
Now, for me, I never had the opportunity to go to college. I graduated school with an IEP. Pretty much, you can just, in its unsense, it's up to you. You can keep it PG or not, freedom of speech. Pretty much, you can wipe your ass with it. That's pretty much what it is.
I'm sure that's not true. I'm sure that it can take you somewhere. You did study something, right?
Well, let me rephrase that. I always make that joke. But the IEP means if you want to go to a trade school
Oh,
and you
okay.
want to work on a car, be a janitor. I mean, it's a 2 year school. So you're not going by no stretch of the imagination. Will an IEP diploma make you go to, I don't know, Potsdam or Plattsburgh or Oneonta? You will not do that with an IEP. You need at least a GED. I actually thought I had a normal one, but that's just me. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with working on cars, working on a refrigerator, being a janitor, they make good money, but
Electricians, absolutely. Engineers, absolutely.
for me, from someone who can't read and write, who could pretty much I was pushed along in high school, I can sum up my 4 years for you. Here's the newspaper. Go sit over there. Don't bother me.
Oh, but you would never be able to tell. I mean, through our communication, you wouldn't you write nicely, you speak nicely. I think you should give yourself a pat on the back for
Now, I
yeah, I
appreciate
always
that.
say that. We have to pat ourselves on the back more often.
You have to be your own biggest cheerleader.
That's right.
And something I've been, funny enough, it mentioned again, you are your own worst enemy as well.
Oh, big time. Your worst critic, I have gotten myself in trouble because of my own brain and my own thoughts. So I suffer too. I just suffer a little differently. And it's something I do very much openly talk about, but I suffer from anxiety terribly. And I'm now learning how to control it, not let it control me. But I have sabotaged a lot of things in my life because I've let the anxiety control me and create all of these alternative universes in my head that weren't even realistic. And so I always say that we all suffer from something.
Absolutely. Hashtag absolutely. But this is not about me. This is about you. But the next question I want to ask you, actually, I'll ask you the easy question, then we can go to the next subject. The last question for icebreakers is, did you do any sports growing up?
So I played some tennis growing up. I think mainly I was a big video gamer. That was my sport. I didn't speak English until I was 7. I'm first generation American from a Ukrainian family. So I didn't have a ton of friends because I couldn't communicate. So I played mainly video games, but I did play some basketball and I did play some tennis. I
Did
still
you,
like to play tennis and I actually really love ping pong, which is like table tennis.
no, that's a lot of fun. Yeah, what were some of your favorite? I don't have a filter for this one, but I can probably find it. What were some of your favorite video games? Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation?
Definitely Nintendo. I liked PlayStation. I had the PlayStation 2, which I was a big fan of, but I had every Nintendo except the GameCube. I had Nintendo, Super Nintendo, N64, the Wii, the Switch. I've had it all. My favorite games were definitely I think the Nintendo 64 was the best system ever made. I think like Mario 64 and Tetrisphere and Golden Gun 007. I think those were some of the best games ever made. But I played a lot of Nintendo, a lot of Mario Brothers, a lot of uh like Yoshi inspired games, Kirby, all of that. Zelda's a huge one. I played a ton of Zelda, Pokemon, although Pokemon came out a little bit later. Um, but yeah, I even had the to-go console, the mobile console, the NDS. I had the NDS, the NDS 2. I did have a Game Gear, but I
I
didn't play
remember
with that was
that.
Sega. Yeah, that was Sega. But I didn't play that one as much. But yeah, even now I have a Nintendo Switch that I still love very, very much. And I do have a PlayStation 4, which I do play some things on. But I would say that Nintendo has pretty much rocked my whole life.
The best thing I ever did was I wanted to buy this when I got out of middle school, but my brother said to my parents, don't buy Xbox. It was either Xbox, PlayStation, or GameCube. And he said, either get him a GameCube or a PlayStation. Do not get Xbox. Because at the time in 2002, it was what I guess Halo and something else. And so graphics, yes, it's good, but
Final
there was
Fantasy.
well, that's a good one, but I don't think that one was for Xbox. Later on,
Oh, maybe,
so
right.
I got Nintendo GameCube. It's the best game, best games console of 2002. It's most wonderful. It really was. GameCube had a lot of plans. It was supposed to connect to the internet. It had the Game Boy player that was really a neat feature. So a couple of years later, when I worked over at the North Face, one of the security guards became friend. I think his name was Matt or something. I don't remember. let's call him Matt. Matt's a nice name. And so he had a friend like, oh, my friend can hack anything. I was like, oh, can you hack my Xbox? So let's see, I'm really horrible with numbers. I think for the past 15 years, maybe 16, my Xbox has Super Nintendo, Sega, a little Sega CD on it. It has everything. I had my PlayStation. I'm like, I wish I can find somebody who can hack my PlayStation because I would love to have Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega, GameCube. I wasn't thinking at the time. At the time, I wanted Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Sega. Looking back at it, probably could have gotten some more out of it. But 2000, what were you doing in 2002?
I actually graduated high school in 2002. And I took a year off before going to college. I used to work for Carlson Companies, which is TGI Fridays. You don't see TGI Fridays so often anymore. They also own a few hotel chains. But when I graduated high school, I decided to take a year off to travel a little bit. I went to Israel because I'm Jewish by religion, and
Me too.
I wanted to explore. So I went on Birthright, which was one of the best trips I've ever been on. I've been like 3 times since. Now I'm too old. But so I did some traveling for that first year, and then I went to community college. But back to gaming for 1 second. I now have a gaming PC that one of my best friends built for me. And that was the best investment ever because you can have any emulator you want on there. So I have a Nintendo emulator, a Super Nintendo emulator, an Xbox emulator. You can have all of the games that you were just like the wish that you just made, you can have on a PC.
It's funny because I even forgot certain games. When I was growing up, I had no social life when I was growing up. I used to pay when on the weekends, I can spend 12 in the afternoon to if no one bothered me, 6, 8 o'clock at night. I used to play Pokemon Stadium.
I remember Pokemon
I
Stadium.
used to play that religiously. But it's funny you should mention we're both Jewish. But not to sound like an asshole or anything, but maybe I am. I have no interest. I celebrate the holidays out of respect for my family. That's all I do, out of respect for my parents. But sometimes we don't even do that. But hint of my show, labels do not dictate who you are and who you want to be.
Absolutely.
So I don't like yes, I am Jewish, but I don't like labeling myself. But I have no interest of going to Israel. If I want to see sand, I just go to the beach. I know that's a bad joke, but
No, that's okay. Listen, to each their own. I also much more, although I am a little more culturally into my religion, we're much more traditional than we are religious. So I can definitely respect where you're coming from.
so the next question I want to ask you is a new subject, song of the day. What song did you listen to today?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I don't think I listened to anything today, but I'm trying to think of I listened to um oh my God, that's a tough question. So I have a very interesting taste in music. My favorite artist of all time is Ed Sheeran. Not everybody's gonna agree with me, but I listen to a lot of Ed Sheeran. I listen to, I guess, Beyond. I listened to the Beyonce country song actually this morning, so I would say that is "This Ain't Texas." I don't know what it's actually called, um, but I have an interesting musical palette.
Now the next one, it's really cool. I found a cassette tape. And now we're dating myself. We're dating ourselves here, but I'm only 36. Um, speaking of shirt, anyway. Anyway, I diarrhea on the mouth. I found a green screen that has a cassette tape on it. So you're watching it right now. It's a cassette tape, and it's pretty cool. It explodes and all that special effects. So with the cassette tape, I now think I'm gonna call it favorite band. What is your one of your favorite bands?
Oh, do the Backstreet Boys count as a band?
Yeah, I see why not.
So they were I waited 13 hours. My poor dad, my poor, wonderful, loving dad waited with me outside, sat outside in foldable chairs for 13 hours to get Backstreet Boys tickets. They were my absolute top through my whole entire childhood to teenage years to,
For
and New
me,
Kids on the Block, of course. I don't know if they're necessarily a band, but yeah, I would say those are my two favorite growing up.
well,
Definitely.
I just to give my 2 cents. 2 cents. I hold up 5 fingers, that's 5 cents. I'm a big fan of being actors. I like Mark Wahlberg. I like Donnie Wahlberg. Donnie Wahlberg's really great in Blue Bloods. Mark Wahlberg's really great. People say he's crazy, but I really don't do the whole political
Everybody's
BS.
crazy.
But for my first band, I would recommend is Rush. Rush
Okay.
was the first band I ever listened to.
Very cool.
Did
Well,
you
yeah,
ever?
if we're going, I loved Kiss as a kid. I loved Pearl Jam. I loved the Dave Matthews Band. So there definitely were. I loved Hootie and the Blowfish. I loved Hootie and the Blowfish.
I heard of them. I can't think of it, but I do know the name for a fact.
Yeah, the Hanson brothers. I think that we had in our, so I'm 39, I'm just a little bit older than you. But we had the best music in our generation growing up.
Only a 3 year difference, but who's counting,
Yeah.
right?
Who's counting?
So the next one I want to ask you is video production. Who influenced you to become a video producer?
I have always been into film and theater. Like I've done theater most of my life. I've always loved character work. And my really good friend Chris is actually who influenced me because I moved back from California to New York. And I started doing some acting with him, and I was very organized, and I was, always on time and very diligent. And he was in the middle of just about to make a movie, and he is a filmmaker, and he asked me, I need somebody like you. Do you want to make a movie with me? And now we're going into our third movie. So I've produced two in the last 2 years, and I love it. So he really is the one who influenced me, and I hope to continue to be in the front of the camera and behind it.
Are you also a writer?
Yes, but I'm more of a skit writer. I'm more of like a short skit writer than I am like a script. I have thought about writing a script. I have a lot of ideas in my head, but I'm more of like a short story writer.
Well,
I'm more
have
of a
you?
character writer. I'm very good at creating characters for a story.
All right, well, let's have an example. If you were writing a character about me, how would you go about it?
Oh, well, I would have a gentleman that's in his mid 30s. We'll call him Frank. Um, Frank in his mid 30s, who's very eccentric, who loves to share his voice and opinions, um, and who grew up very introverted. So it takes him a minute to kind of get broken in. Um, but he slowly creates his own identity, and his social life takes off from it. And he winds up and this introvert that had very few friends growing up grows up to be a full social influencer. So his whole life changes. And that's how
It
I would script him.
No, absolutely. I didn't mean to interrupt. I do apologize.
No, it's fine.
He sounds like a nice guy. The
Frank is a nice guy. In my story, he's a nice guy.
next one I want to ask you, I'm going to give you a choice because we have 10 minutes left. Do you want to talk about COVID-19, how they impacted your career, or you want to talk about social media?
We could talk about COVID-19.
All right, so with that being said, it's COVID time. That
Um,
sounds really horrible.
I
I, I,
know.
I
Well,
only did that because I have a special effect. I know.
yeah.
So the first question anyway, I didn't go first. I fought it, and I'm
That's
like, you know
okay.
what? I might as well do it to get some kind of reaction. It's like that guy's an asshole, and it's by any stretch of imagination, it's not anything to make jokes about. And but with that being said, we like to have fun, so we trying to make light of every situation. Question I want to ask you is how has COVID-19 impacted your career, and do you see things in a different point of view?
Yeah, so I never imagined to see a pandemic in my lifetime. I didn't know what to expect. COVID-19 was terrible, awful for many, many, many people. My parents were actually visiting me in California when it hit in California, and we went remote and everything shut down. And we didn't know what to do. We wound up going to Costco where there were like 7 million people, and all the toilet paper, paper towels, all the essentials were gone. It was like a dream. Um, but COVID-19 helped me because before COVID-19, my company didn't believe in remote work. And I had a really good job in California, which is what kept me there for so long. Plus, I got to do theater. When COVID hit and the theaters shut down, they went all virtual. All their shows were kind of virtual. It was just so different. I was home. California is very strict. So I worked from home for probably a year with COVID. And so I went home back to New York for most of that time. And it gave me the opportunity to prove myself and how diligent I can be working remote. So they let me go full time remote, and that gave me the opportunity to move home. If it wasn't for COVID, I would have had to quit my job. I would have moved home, but I would have had to quit my job and look for something in New York in order to move. So it helps me in that way. But it definitely scared me half to death because they did let go of a lot of people. And my dad has asthma, so I was terrified of, we knew so little about it that it was terrifying. And my roommate at the time, who was one of my best friends, had a lot of like hypertension issues. So we were both really worried about I was very worried about getting him sick. So we really didn't go anywhere. Went to the supermarket every so often, but um, it was like I Am Legend when he wakes up and everything is just nobody's on the road and everything is just dust and tumbleweed. Well, it was really crazy, and I was very worried that I did not think the economy was going to bounce back the way that it did. And maybe some people don't call this a bounce back, but maybe we are still in recession. But I didn't expect it to bounce back the way that it did. I also didn't expect hiring. Like now, it's really hard to hire uh, suitable, like experienced people. Like we have a lot of trouble, and that never used to be a thing. So I think a lot of people started their own businesses and started kind of online businesses and workshops and things like that. I think a lot of people also traveled the world and kind of expatted out of the US. I have a few friends myself that left the country, gave them an opportunity to. Um, so it was definitely a doozy, I think, for everyone. And I do feel bad for, how many lives COVID did take and how many lives it changed because like some people still to this day have lingering effects. I had
Yeah.
COVID twice. I was very lucky. I was very sick the first time. I was like really sick the first time. I wasn't so sick the second time. And now it's become like a common cold or flu. Um, but it wreaked a lot of havoc.
And Donald Trump did a lot of damage, that he, like the nursing home scandal, all those people died for absolutely no reason, and he dragged his feet on the vaccines and all that other BS. And you mentioned also the bounce back. I mean, yes, things did bounce back, but what? Anytime you listen to the internet, and I can't speak, I'm looking at my own reflection, distracted by my own looks. Anytime you listen to the media, it's always going to be a hit and miss. And you're like, yes, we did bounce back from 4 years ago. We are better now with people getting vaccinated, except for the idiots who don't. Um, Unemployment, it's down. I'm sorry, unemployment, it's up. People can't get a job. People don't want to work. People don't want to leave home. You mentioned your job, you can't get people. I know people who have, one person has a haircut place, you can't get people to cut haircuts. people don't want to work in Target, Walmart, and ShopRite because they don't want to, or they're afraid, or they're not hiring. That's a better question. That's actually the next question I want to talk to you about. I don't know if you saw it recently, but I think I shared a picture on Facebook. I have to take a look. In New Jersey, at a ShopRite, there's a shopping cart. It was bad enough. Okay, you know what? The self-checkouts aren't that bad. If you have like 6 items you can put in your hands, you want to go in and out, okay, that's fine. If you have 30 or more items, you don't want to do that self-checkout. That's number one. And it's bad enough we have self-checkout. But make it worse, now they have a shopping cart, a freaking shopping cart with a built-in self-checkout. So as you're sticking your items in the wagon, you're scanning it, and then you just put your card in, and there you go. So you bypass the self-checkout completely. You bypass the cashiers, and I'm like, are you guys trying to put cashiers out of business? Because I like being a cashier. There's some people I like interacting with. There's some people I would say, who are you? Who moved the rock? But there's some people I like working. I don't want, you save so much more money on self-checkouts and technology than you do on a normal person. And it's bullshit. Because I like working, and there's a good portion of humanity that likes working. Of course, you got to have a couple other jack-offs who, want to save money, don't do anything, stay home, and, saying Republicans are no better. But you know what I mean? What is your opinion? Do you like working or?
So I love to work. That actually scares me a little bit with all of the AI like technology that's coming out, because there's nothing I do that AI technically can't replace in kind of like the finance world. So I do think the future is a little bit scary. I do think that I also think that like it's dangerous. Like I think that look how much technology glitches today.
Right.
So who's not to say that something's going to glitch and, screw all, something somewhere very deeply. But I already use some AI for emails, and you can do almost anything with it now. I agree with you as far as like Amazon started that whole self-checkout. They were the first ones to have a store where you scan your items as you put them in your cart. And so I think some people mimic to that. And I do, as much as I do think it's convenient, because everywhere is short staffed. Like you go to like when I go to the Target, I can almost never find somebody to ask like, hey, where can I find this item or that item? There's almost like no one there except the cashiers. And I think that's what led us here, is that it's true that there's a lot of people that are either don't want to work or are not working or went and started their own things. We just don't have enough. We don't have enough employees, which sounds crazy. But I do think the self-checkout process, I never buy like too much. I buy like for a few days at a time. So I tend to go through self-checkout pretty often. I bring my own bags, all of that. I'm a bag reuser. But I do think it's pretty crazy. And I do think that humanity is slowly being replaced. And I don't know what the future is going to bring for us.
No, you're right. There's a stupid thing where like you see a video, oh bro, I'm speaking in English. Okay, then you do an application and you do match up the mouth, and now you're speaking Spanish. Now you're speaking Japanese. I'm like, it's freaking horrifying. And it's technology. Look, I'm guilty of using AI to come up with questions for my talk show. My excuse is I have a disability. Other people are just lazy, but it's kind of like, it's like a car. It's like a gun. If you misuse it and abuse it, it's going to lead to problems. And the internet has to be regulated. Our goal is to reach 500 and more views. Make sure, if you're watching, you're obligated. Like, share, comment. And until we meet again, Catch you later, and stay tuned for the sit down on the Keith Andrew Network on Instagram and TikTok.